Please take your seats. Our program will begin momentarily. Please make your seats. Also, make your way into the ballroom. Please silence all communication devices. Our program is about to begin. Thank you. Please take your seats. Our program will begin momentarily. Please take your seats. Good afternoon, and welcome to our plenary lunch session. For our next panel, please welcome our moderator, the Director of Small Business Diverse Customer Segments and Senior Vice President, Wells Fargo, also a USCM Platinum Partner, Robbie Shapira.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. There was like one person that said it back. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I know it's when you're eating two things, I'll have to contend with the clang of silverware, and then also eventually a food coma will set in. But thank you for hanging in. We're going to keep it lively and fun as you all enjoy your lunch. As shared, I'm Robbie Shapira. I work at Wells Fargo, and I get the privilege of leading our work for diverse and women-owned businesses nationwide. A lot of the work that we do is centered on access to capital. That probably makes sense to every mayor in this room, because the reality of a business moving from an idea into a full-fledged and prospering enterprise is having the funds to bring their dreams to life. And a financial institution like Wells Fargo, we're uniquely positioned to redesign how we do lending, to provide resources to nonprofits, and to advocate for the needs of business owners. So I'm very proud to lead a discussion that's going to talk about entrepreneurship with two incredible mayors, so thank you for joining us. First, we have Philadelphia Mayor Sherelle Parker.
Hello, hello, hello.
Thank you. The cue cards are working for
Yes.
applause. And then we have Raleigh Mayor Mary Ann Baldwin. And as I shared, we're going to talk all about entrepreneurship with a bit of a lean on what we do for diverse and women-owned businesses. Let me give you a quick stat. There's a Federal Reserve study that comes out every year that talks about firms owned by people of color. Wow. And when it came out this last year, what it emphasized is that for Hispanic and Black firms, they are half as likely as white firms to get all or most of the credit that they request.
Wow.
And so while that level of disparity exists, there is work to be done. And I'm really interested to hear what mayors are doing in their cities for entrepreneurship overall, and in particular for diverse and women-owned. You know, the first thing I thought we would start with, I'm going to pass it to Mayor Parker first. But, you know, for a micro business to succeed, it is a lot about network and support and access to capital, practical assistance. So Mayor Parker, to help entrepreneurship in your city, you started Power Up Your Business in conjunction with the Community College of Philadelphia. I also understand this is a feeder now into Goldman Sachs' 10,000 Small Business Program. That's awesome. Can you tell us about the program and how it's giving micro businesses in your city a step up?
So first, Robbie and Mayor Baldwin, let me say it's an honor to be here with the two of you, and I'm excited to help elevate this conversation about a constituency often forgotten about when we talk about job creation and economic development. For me in the city of Philadelphia, I recognize that small businesses were the primary job creators in our city, but they were the ones who lacked the technical support needed, backroom support, having an attorney on retainer, an accounting firm on retainer. It just wasn't standard operating procedure. So I created, long before I became mayor, U.S. Conference of Mayors, I was a member of the City Council of Philadelphia, created this program in partnership with our Community College of Philadelphia and said, how about we provide for free technical support, peer mediation support, and access to capital. Who knew? And I wanted to bring my notes, so I'll give you the stats. Over 1,000 businesses participated. We created over 337 peer-to-peer partnerships, and the businesses in turn created almost 1,100 jobs in the city of Philadelphia. 596 full-time jobs, 442 jobs. So what we learned is that small businesses are much more focused and successful when they're focused on the service they provide or the product that they're very good at producing. But they're not, you know, lawyers by trade, accountants by trade. So government, our job was to connect them to the service. And thank you for affirming that it did become Goldman Sachs's chief feeder in our region. So I was super excited about that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Parker.
Thank you.
You know, in the financial industry in this world, we have to work together. And so I'm so proud that you're taking advantage of what Goldman Sachs is providing. You know, and what you're talking about, that level of education, is how a business owner knows what to do with the funds and resources that they have. But in a city like Raleigh, they then can get stopped because of the adversity of just how hard it is to start a business. But Mayor Baldwin, it sounds like you've done some work in that area to make it simpler for business owners to be successful in Raleigh. Will you tell us more about that?
Which part? There's lots. We have done a lot of things. I was the co-founder, so we have a similar story here of a nonprofit called Innovate Raleigh. We sat there, we had this conversation one day, and it's like, we know we have entrepreneurs here, we know we have small business owners who need, but where are they? And we came up with the idea of putting together a summit, and Wells Fargo was actually our first sponsor,
Awesome.
So thank you for that.
Pleasure.
But we put together a summit, and we thought maybe 50 people would show up. 200 people showed up, and it just skyrocketed. So Innovate Raleigh became that nonprofit. It now is under the guise of the Raleigh Chamber of Commerce. So we're all working together. And an outgrowth of that was one of our impact partner grants. So that is something we give. 80% of the companies and nonprofits who are awarded this, they help small business, minority business owners, people who need it the most. And we have awarded about 25 grants so far. We had to divert the money during COVID, but for direct payment. But we award up to $120,000 a year for this program. And it really, it goes beyond just, oh, here's the help. We do special workshops. We take them through the process of how you go get a bank loan. We make introductions. We really help them grow. And one of our nonprofits who went through this, District D, who does a lot of work with schools and innovation and whatnot, they said we could not have done what we've done without this. So I'm really proud of the outgrowth of Innovate Raleigh and what it's created, not only with the impact partner grants, but we also do a building upfit grant and we do a facade grant. So the building upfit grant helps them like with construction costs on space, and then the facade grant helps with signage, helps make the place look more attractive. So the whole idea is we want people to stay in Raleigh, grow in Raleigh, and be part of our community.
So amazing. Yeah, I used to always say that I think it takes a village to raise a business, like raising a child. But I got properly corrected. I met the owner of Azel's Famous Chicken. Previously, I lived in Seattle, Washington. Azel's is the second largest Black-founded and Black-owned restaurant chain in the United States. And he says it takes a community to raise a business. Okay. And the subtle difference, I think, is what you were talking about, Mayor Baldwin. It's a wraparound service. It's funding and resources. But actually, Mayor Parker, to what I was saying earlier, you signed an executive order about PHL Open for Business because you also realized just the government can do more. Will you tell us more about that and what inspired you to sign that executive order?
So the very constituency, Mayor Baldwin, that you just talked about supporting, what we learned, Robbie, is that sometimes government can get in the way of serving the very constituency that you need. So as soon as we arrived, we signed an executive order creating PHL Open for Business with the goal of streamlining access to any programs, supports, licenses, and permits, any services offered by the city of Philadelphia that businesses needed in order to survive and thrive. So when you talked about, Mayor Baldwin, the bricks and mortar, for us, we needed a digital point of entry. So we established a Mayor's Business Action Team, a digital center where any support for storefront improvement, signage that you would need, you have one portal that you can access. In addition to that, I'm not sure about other cities across the country, but Philadelphia has done a poor job in attempting to streamline bureaucracy and red tape. You know, if I make sweet potato pie, I'm extremely good at making the sweet potato pie, but if I need to access the revenue department, the assessment department, that's not something that I may have time to do. So now we've assigned through the Mayor's Business Action Team particular counselors that a commercial quarter can access, a real live person and someone to help them navigate the system. So it really was about getting out of the way, helping sole proprietors open up brick and mortar businesses, and quite frankly, to get the supports they need so that they can become contributors to the economic pie. We want to grow the tax base. Well, we need business to survive and thrive and be the prime job creators that they were meant to be.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Mayor Parker. It reminds me, this last weekend I was at an event called Good Soil. It's something the TD Jakes Enterprises puts on. We're a proud partner of the chairman, TD Jakes. I got to introduce Tabitha Brown on stage. Amazing. I know, I just about died. If you don't know Tabitha Brown, she's an epic entrepreneur. You should follow her on Instagram. That's not Wells Fargo, that's just me saying that. But one of the things that she talked about was exactly that, Mayor Parker. It's a business owner gets into their business because of a reason, because they're good at what they do, but the steps to get to success often are harder, and removing those barriers are so important. Mayor Baldwin, I know this is something that's really important to you, is how to remove barriers facing entrepreneurs and micro businesses. You touched on it earlier, but is there anything else that's happening in Raleigh that we should know about in that space?
Oh, hell yeah. So I want to tap into something, though, that you both touched on. You know, to be successful, you can't just do it. It has to be done with intentionality. You have to have access. And one thing I always talk about is that open door. Where do entrepreneurs and innovators go to? Where do small business owners go? And then partnerships. You talked about community. It is about community, and it's all about working together. So in Raleigh, I started an Office of Strategy and Innovation, and that is our front door. They work, though, with our small business office, our MWBE staff, and also our Office of Sustainability to really bring the services forward. They work with Innovate Raleigh. They participate in Raleigh-Durham Startup Week. Winnovation is a big thing. They're doing a Big Ideas Raleigh meetup. We just hosted the Smart Cities Connect, and we had thousands of people from around the world. But what was really good for our local folks was they did a pitch fest, and it was all focused on technology startups. But we also know that what you were talking about earlier, how do you get through all this? Well, we now have a small business toolkit that does market research for people so they know what they're getting into. We have a startup roadmap that takes people from like their dream, like registering their name, to opening day and walk them through that. We have a sustainable business toolkit that we worked on with our Office of Sustainability. So if that's your area of focus, there's a special toolkit there. We also have worked with the Council for the Black Wall Street Forward program. This year we held a summit in February, and we had more than 60 local entrepreneurs and small business owners of color. And also, we were selected to participate in the National League of Cities for Inclusive Entrepreneurship Program. We received $15,000 from that, from the Kauffman Foundation. But we're using that money to focus on how we support our Latinx community. So we really, it's, yes, minority-owned business, women, but we're really focusing more now on Latinx and also our LGBTQ community. Really important.
Yeah. And I was reminded we partner with an organization called Third Way on advancing entrepreneurial equity, and they'll publish papers that we encourage all of you to read and to leverage. But one of the ones they just published was on AI for business owners. And as you were talking, Mayor Baldwin, it made me think about that business owner who, when they have a question, they Google, right? And maybe now they're using like ChatGPT or some other resource, but the advantages that business owners have in technology today and how we in corporate and public sector can help simplify and enhance a business's ability to get to their next level in the most integrated way, I think is really powerful. And I think your innovation work and how you're bringing education and bringing business owners together really helps. And maybe we'll wrap on that comment, or that concept, not comment. The concept being, how do we bring business owners together so they can network, so they can find resources? I'm just curious, if either one of you, Mayor Parker, Mayor Baldwin, what is something that you're proud that your city is doing to help bring the networks of entrepreneurship together?
The peer-to-peer, not just mediation, but just creating an environment where folks who all need access to the same resources, but are in different places and stations of opening and or establishing and or growing their businesses. For us in Philadelphia, I'm proud. I just passed my first One Philly budget, $6.37 billion in the city of Philadelphia, and it included the first ever city's contribution for capital, because another thing that these small business owners have told us is that they don't want to get caught on a debt hamster wheel, especially for MBEs and WBEs. So we said, what if there were a pot of funds that we consider patient capital, love capital, that these businesses could access and invest in their businesses so that they can focus on innovation and growth and not debt. So they all come together whenever there's an opportunity to have access to patient capital with support from groups like Wells, organizations, we find a way to bring them together.
That's awesome. Well, we're proud to bring it because at Wells Fargo, we estimate that 46% of our businesses are ethnically diverse owned and over 40% owned by women. Both of those exceed the national average. In fact, the best estimate is maybe 30% of businesses are owned by, the owners are ethnically diverse. And so really diversity is the business. And so I'm proud, Mayor Parker, to work with you in every way on that type of work. And I just want to close by sharing a special thank you. I want to personally thank Mayor Baldwin. You've announced that you will not be running for re-election in November, so this will be your last USCM. Can you join me in giving her a round of applause for her work, her steadfast work?
I'm going to have to stay in touch with you so you can share those.
You got it.
Thank you for your service to the city of Raleigh and for being a friend to this group. And Mayor Parker, it's such a joy to be with you here today. Mayor Baldwin, thank you for your time, and thank you, audience.
How's lunch? Good? All right, make sure you also thank our hosts, but also our servers. Thank you to our servers. You guys are amazing, especially back there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's see. Okay, our next panel, I'm very excited about this. It's about the 2024 election. It's called Female Voters, Strategies to Boost Voter Turnout. We will discuss ways in which we can improve community outreach and increasing voter engagement for female voters. This discussion is being presented by the USCM Women's Mayors Leadership Alliance and will be moderated by someone who I absolutely love and adore, and she is the Alliance Chair, and that is the wonderful Mayor of Albany, New York, and that's Mayor Kathy Sheehan. Coming up, coming up.
Thank you so much. It is really great to be here. Thank you, Mayor Sheevy. Our first panelist, I'm going to start right out, is the chair of the Michigan Democratic Party, Lavora Barnes, and a political veteran with, yeah, she's got a fan club here, with extensive experience in communications and fundraising. Lavora has implemented a year-round organizing strategy in every corner of Michigan. Also with us is Kyle Learman, CEO of Civic Nation, which is a nonpartisan organization designed to strengthen our democracy and increase voter participation. He has spent his career working to build a more inclusive and equitable America, and I want to thank both of you for agreeing to participate in this crucial discussion. And to set the stage a little bit, I'm going to dive into our first question, but to set the stage, mayors met yesterday in a mayors-only session to talk about the 2024 election and the concerns that we have around potential violence. And I think that's why we really want to focus on women, because the intimidation factor can be real. And so as the 2024 election comes into focus, women across the country are showing a heightened interest in policy, legislation, and government. There's a greater sense of concern among women that is motivating many of them, regardless of their political affiliation, to be more civically engaged. And there's also a lot of this divisive rhetoric and, quite frankly, outright intimidation that's happening on both sides, which may serve to discourage women from participating. So how can we leverage women's electoral power so that their civic engagement can result in more inclusive and equitable society? So, Lavora, we'll start with you.
I'll start by saying it's a lot to put on the women. It's on all of us to make sure that we're doing better, to make sure that we have an equitable discussion and an equitable place for people to participate civically, number one. Number two, I think it's so important that we go after disinformation and misinformation. And a lot of you folks in this room are trusted voices, and you need to be using that trusted voice to make sure folks are getting the truth about how the election process works, how to access the election process, where to go, when to go, how to vote, all of that information, and then of course how to run when women and other folks want to run. But the bottom line is we have to be teaching a better way to engage in civic discourse. We cannot always disagree and be disagreeable. Let's try to actually talk to people about the issues and disagree in a way that doesn't incite violence, doesn't incite anger, and doesn't put people in danger. Because we're in a place right now where it feels dangerous to be an elected official in many places. It feels dangerous to even think about running for office. And we have to fix that as a society. That's not just on the women, that's on all of us.
Well, first, thank you, Mayor Sheehan, so much for having me here. And it's great to see everybody. Thanks to Tom Cochran and the rest of the U.S. Conference of Mayors leadership. It's an honor to be with you all. At Civic Nation, as you said, we're a nonprofit ecosystem for organizing and education and leadership initiatives, and a huge number of our efforts focus on strengthening our democracy, from Michelle Obama's When We All Vote to the All-In Campus Democracy Challenge. But at the end of the day, voting should be safe, simple, and fair. And mayors can play an incredibly powerful role in making sure that elections are safe, simple, and fair, but they can also use really two levers of power that they have. What is your power as a mayor to use your interactions with your communities and your constituents through government services to add on voter registration, to add on voting information, to add on updates about when elections are being held, what the options are to vote. So how are you using your government services, the everyday touch points that you have with your communities and your citizens, to make sure that they're getting the voting information that they need to participate, number one? And then how are you using your convening power to bring together all the folks in your communities, the small businesses, the big businesses, the nonprofits, the churches, and asking them to make sure they're using their platforms, their networks, reaching their customers, their members, the communities that they're trying to serve, to actually make sure folks are registered and getting out to vote. Mrs. Obama talks a lot about building a culture of voting in this country. We say that really means two things. That means being in culture, so showing up where people are, sort of putting the medicine in the applesauce a little bit. We did that last week with the NBA, where we released a PSA right before Game 4 of the NBA Finals with Jason Tatum. I'm sorry if there are Mavs fans here. So you got to put the medicine in the applesauce, but you also, creating a culture of voting in this country means that every institution, every company, every mayor takes it on as their responsibility to help others fully participate in our democracy. And that is nonpartisan, and every mayor, every company, and every nonprofit needs to be a part of making sure more people vote.
Well said. And, getting to where we vote, right? Transportation is an important topic. It touches all of our lives, and when we think about the challenges that people can face in getting to the polls. I went with a group of women mayors. We were invited by the Swiss embassy to go to Switzerland. In Switzerland, they vote all the time, and they vote by mail all the time. But maybe we could talk about some of those perceived barriers in even just getting to the polls, early voting. Some states have early voting, other states do not. And so really just talking about the environment and maybe some of the things that mayors could be doing with respect to sort of just that physical act of voting and how that happens and plays out in our cities.
Kyle first or me first?
You got it.
I will go. I'm lucky enough to come from Michigan, where we have done a lot of, cheer for Michigan, where we've done a lot of work to fix that process of getting access to the ballot. And I'm going to advocate for a couple of things here that folks probably already know, and if you could do that, you would, but you should figure out how. Number one, absentee voting by mail. Everybody should have it. It should be a way that folks can access the ballot. It is the easiest thing that folks can do so that whatever transportation or other issues pop up for folks on election day, childcare, other things, aren't a barrier because you've already voted, because that process has happened already. Number two, drop boxes. If you can place drop boxes around where people already go, I'm going to pay my water bill, and also here's my ballot, whatever those places are, it's incredibly helpful for folks to be able to drop that ballot somewhere that doesn't require them to transport themselves all the way to the polling place. And then the third thing, more polling places, not less, so that folks have less distance to travel to get to the polling place to actually cast their ballot. I'm seeing a trend where we're actually, increasing the size of the distance between where a polling place is and certain neighborhoods. And I say certain neighborhoods, and I think y'all know what neighborhoods I'm talking about. But we need to reverse that. And I think that when you're working with your clerks and your election officials, you need to be talking about where that placement of those polling places is and can be and should be, so that folks have access to it and don't have to go long distances to cast their ballot if they choose to vote in person. And then, of course, I like a long period of voting in person. Give them a week to 9 days where they can show up and vote in person. Makes it much easier for folks to find time in that window where they don't have to figure out how to get time off of work. They don't have to figure out childcare. They can go at a time that works for them.
Well, so I said safe, simple, and fair.
Yeah.
I want to add two things that we think voting should be. You were talking about election security, which is obviously so important, making sure that there's not violence. We've lost the fun and the joy in voting in some ways in our country. And at Civic Nation, and When We All Vote in particular, we're trying to put the joy back in voting. So safe, simple, fair, fun, and family friendly. We actually run a program at Civic Nation When We All Vote where we throw parties at or near polling locations. We've run randomized control trials on the program, and by throwing a party at or near a polling site, you can increase turnout by anywhere between 2% and 4%. Those parties are thrown by the AKAs and the Deltas, by the AME Church, by the local YMCA. They're barbecues. They're bring your dogs with you to vote. They're bring your family with you to vote. But they create a safe and fun environment where folks feel comfortable. Yep. And by the way, it creates a more streamlined transportation setup because you can come with your friends, you can come with your neighbors. Voting together is a powerful thing, and bringing the fun, bringing the family. How are you creating an atmosphere that's making people feel more comfortable? And if they're coming with their community, if they're coming with their church, if they're coming with their sisters and their brothers, I think that is a way to make everybody feel more comfortable. And it, in these trials we run, it shows it works. It increases turnout each and every election.
And so, that's a great idea. I love the idea of, having a party, really celebrating that people are voting, bringing your family. I didn't think about bringing your dog, but I'm sure the people from Mars, PetSmart, or Pet Care would love
Mars
that.
can sponsor
yes,
some
they
parties
can
to the polls.
That. And so, I think that's a really great idea. I think, in looking though at what we're hearing, the divisiveness that we're hearing. What are some strategies that you're using? What are some strategies that mayors could use? We're all on social media. We all have people who follow us. And so, again, we're not talking about partisanship, right? Because as mayors, we can't use our office in that way, but really encouraging people to vote and encouraging or in some ways demystifying or toning down that dialogue. What are some strategies that you're using or that you could suggest that we would use back in our cities?
Kyle touched on this a little bit before. One of the things I love to see is when mayors use communications that they already send out to their folks, right? You're already sending them things that they're accustomed to getting in the mail. Insert in there the information about voting and remind them where, when, how to get registered, to vote, and participate in the election. Again, nonpartisan. It's not about who they're voting for. It's about how they access the ballot. And I also suggest that you use some graphics and easy things for people to see and get there, not just a lot of words, to help people understand what that process is. Because, again, simple and easy is what it is. We don't want folks to think that voting is hard. We want to show them that the process is easy, but here it is if you know it. So I'm imagining, tuck it into the water bill, tuck it into the tax bill, the things that people are going to open because it comes in that envelope that they're accustomed to seeing. Add it to the websites and other things. Anywhere that folks are accustomed to getting information from you, a trusted messenger is a great place for you to include voting information and how to participate civically, including showing up at city council and all those other things that we want people to do, because voting is not the end of civic participation. In my mind, it is the beginning, and it follows with participating in other ways as well. So that's what I would like to see folks do.
Absolutely. And I'll just double tap on everything you just said. I think that's all absolutely right. I also think that mayors have an opportunity, and you're already doing this in so many ways, but one of our theories on rebuilding trust in democracy, rebuilding trust in government's ability to deliver, is there's about $140 billion of money left on the table every single year because folks don't enroll in different benefits programs. Right now, the Department of Education has several hundred billions of dollars in student debt relief. Disproportionately affects black women. President Biden and Secretary Cardone enacted the SAVE plan. They have public service loan forgiveness. There's about 43 million folks who are eligible for student debt forgiveness. Only 8.5 million have signed up. So I also just want to use that as an example of a way to rebuild trust in government and democracy's ability to deliver. Make sure your communities are signing up for these new programs, and then again, using those opportunities as a way to connect what the government is doing for folks, what folks can do to participate with their democracy. So Civic Nation is hosting clinics across the country, and we're working with some mayors to actually make sure folks are enrolled in the new SAVE program, in student debt forgiveness, enormous sums of money that we're able to save folks. Each event we've done, we've actually saved student debt holders over $1 million apiece, and then we're making sure they're registered to vote at the end of those events. So mayors can take a leading role in bringing folks together, making sure they're signed up for these programs, unlocking some of those billions of dollars for their community members. That rebuilds trust in government, it rebuilds trust in democracy, it gives them a great opportunity to talk to their constituents about voting. And SAVE and student debt forgiveness is just one example. We've got the new summer EBT program. How are we making sure everyone's taking advantage of that? How are we taking advantage of the new IRA tax credits? There's so many things on the table that give government leaders an opportunity to show that the government is working, democracy is working for them, and they need to continue participating. And so those connections we found have been really powerful with the work we've been doing.
That's great, and I think that really opens up a lot of opportunity for us, again, to have these conversations in a way that we're not talking about candidates, we're not talking about partisanship, but we're talking about what government does and how we as mayors can ensure that our communities are able to take advantage of the many programs that are available. And I think that kind of leads to what will probably be my final question, because we're going to run out of time. But how can we ensure that women are informed about not just the candidates, but the civic issues, the civic engagement? Because again, for elections to be successful and democratic, voters have to understand their rights, their responsibilities. They have to be well informed. So what are some of the strategies and spaces and places where you think that happens, and in particular where we can make sure that we're not forgetting, right? Like, it's one thing to go to the Rotary Club or to some of these other organizations, but where can we as mayors make sure that we're finding women voters and voters that might not necessarily be in those other spaces that we are?
It's a really great question. I think that one of the things that we need to talk about in context here also is information versus misinformation and disinformation. So I'm going to take a moment to go back to all of you are trusted voices in your communities. So please be sharing the truth about how elections work and about all of that. And because we need to build back that trust in our democracy and in our electoral process. This country runs terrific elections that are safe and fair, but folks don't believe it, but they will believe it if they hear it from you over and over again. So yes, do that. And in terms of spaces, we spend a lot of time, Rotary clubs and that sort of things, but we need to get, I think, even smaller in community groups and book clubs and block clubs and childcare groups and other places. And then if you can, spend some time working that internet where you find people just chatting away on the internet about all of the things that they think are true that aren't true. Parts of your teams should be trolling for all of that to make sure that you are putting down the disinformation and misinformation and lifting up the truth, again, from your trusted voice, which is, as their mayor, they trust you and they will believe you when you say it. I think we don't spend enough time making sure we're responding to the incorrect information that gets disseminated, particularly in the social media spaces, and push back on all of that. So I encourage all of you to use your social media platforms and find the social media platforms that folks are on that maybe you're not on, because I have learned from my team that nobody uses Facebook anymore. I think that has something to do with my age. They keep saying it to me. But whatever platforms folks are using, find a way to get on them and make sure that you're sharing truth and information. And also talk about the things that Kyle talked about, the work that your office is doing, the programs that you all have that are available to people that really do sort of lean toward getting people to understand the importance of good government and the trust that they can have in their government to provide for them and to make life better for them individually.
Absolutely. Well, I had the privilege of working in the Obama White House for many years, and I handled a lot of the work that we did in early childhood education. And one thing I wish I had been able to do more since we started When We All Vote, but I would encourage mayors to take this. There are incredible early childhood programs in probably every single one of your cities. Those early childhood programs are filled with incredible early education providers, and just incredible communities. I'm the father of 3 daughters, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
Wow.
And the community that is created around, I know, it's a busy household. The community that's created around these preschools is amazing. And I've always felt like those preschools can be such an important venue to have conversations about making sure folks are participating, make sure folks are registered, make sure they're getting all the benefits that are available to them. And so I think getting the early childhood community in each of your cities involved be a great way to reach everyone, but certainly moms and young moms in a really powerful way. So I'd encourage folks to reach out to their local networks, their local Head Starts, get them really involved. And then I also should just say, more specifically to your question, you can, in a nonpartisan way, tell folks where candidates stand on the issues. There are a number of nonprofits that Civic Nation and When We All Vote work with, where it's just factual information. Here's where this and that candidate stand. You are allowed to share that information in a 501c3 nonpartisan way, and it's something we do quite a bit. And so happy to talk with folks about the specifics there, but you are allowed to tell people where folks stand on the issues.
Well, and I think that when you talk about the opportunities, I always say that if you want to find parents in my city, go to their concerts at their schools, because everyone shows up. And so, having the opportunities to really pull people together, and to me, what I'm hearing from you, celebrate the fact that this is a democracy, and that we can all come to a community picnic together where we're all going to go vote. And we may go into those polling places, and my mother and father used to joke, because my father was a lifelong Republican and my mother was a lifelong Democrat, and they would joke that they canceled out each other's votes every year. But they went and they voted, and it was an important thing. And we can do that and really bring our communities together. And I think that as mayors, when we think about what we're concerned about and some of the things that we've seen happen in polling places, we've got to really take our polling places back as communities and really talk about how the fact that our communities are better than that. And it's not a place where you go and get bullied when you're going and exercising your hard-fought right to vote. And so I'm so encouraged, because I know we have mayors on all sides of the political spectrum who really care about their communities and want to make sure that everyone feels safe voting. So I want to thank our panelists for their insights and for taking the time to address this topic. And I want to thank all of my fellow mayors for being here.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Terrific, Mayor.
Please welcome to the stage Home Region Director of the Walton Family Foundation, Robert Burns.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Robert Burns, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Home Region Director for the Walton Family Foundation, joining you all from Bentonville, Arkansas. And we really believe at the foundation that local government is absolutely essential to what happens in communities across the country. And I am truly excited as somebody who started his career in local government to be joined by two of the most dynamic mayors in the United States today. Mayor Reed from Montgomery, Alabama, so welcome to the stage, and Mayor Wu from Wichita, Kansas, so welcome.
Thank you.
We were talking backstage about what motivated them to run, and I think both have really compelling stories. And I just want to thank both of you for public service and for every mayor that is here. It is an essential ingredient to making communities work, so thank you for doing that. We have a few questions, and I hope we can just talk a little bit here. Mayor Wu, Wichita was listed in the top 5 of Forbes' 2024 Best Places to Live, citing affordability, high employment rate. On a similar note, on the Most Dynamic Metros report, Heartland Forwards found that Wichita moved up nearly 200 spots, which is pretty fantastic. What do you attribute to that? What's happening in Wichita that you would say has really made that happen?
Well, I can say that the American dream is alive and well in Wichita, Kansas, and that is the reason why. We have a city that has a long history and legacy with aviation. Our workforce and talent pipeline has been something that we are very proud of. But we also are a city that is truly an air capital of the world. And air really means something. It means aviation, our history, but we also are innovators. So there's a lot of entrepreneurship in our community, and we want to support, whether it's that big business, Pizza Hut was founded in Wichita, Kansas, to the small mom and pop. We are very proud of our innovators. In addition to research is something that we're also collaborating with education. So Wichita State University, WSU Tech, NIAR are all part of the research that is happening in Wichita that puts Wichita on the map. So the air capital of the world is open for business. Now, when it comes to affordability of living, the Wichita metro area has one of the highest rates of home ownership by Asian Americans. So my family immigrated to Wichita, Kansas when I was 8 years old, and we've been living there for 31 years. And I can say that in Wichita, family is truly what makes us so special. We believe in helping one another, and I believe that in Wichita, if you share your goal, your dream, Wichitans, mentors, and individuals in community want to help you. So I really believe that I'm a testament to that. And I'm just so grateful to represent the city of Wichita. But I really do believe that, again, it's affordability, it's that short commute. So really, Wichita has a great value proposition, and that is we're a really great value to live in. And so we should be thinking about some of our flyover states that wouldn't be around for you to fly on if it wasn't for our flyover states like Kansas.
I love that. I love it. And truly, both Heartland leaders, too. Thank you very much. Mayor Reed, I know you were elected in 2019, and you've really emphasized honoring Montgomery's legacy as the birthplace of the civil rights movement, really built upon that legacy. I was relating to you. I have roughly about 15 friends who are in Montgomery right now visiting for the first time and loving it. And they really seem to be paying off your efforts around job growth, industry creation, and what's happening. How these successes come about? What have you changed in the community, and what's enabling this now?
Well, you know, I think for us in Montgomery, it's been about telling our story, our history, not only as a city rich from the birthplace of the Confederacy to the birthplace of civil rights, and talking about the trajectory of our nation, both the pain and the progress of our city, and taking that message out to the nation that we're open for business, that we're looking for new opportunities, but we want to be inclusive. We want to make sure that we just aren't talking about the past, but that we're talking about the present and the future. And for us, that's meant, you know, really a self-check on where our systems are working, where they need to be improved, and where they need to be scrapped altogether. So in our city, we really had to have tough conversations around how we bring in more minority-owned businesses into the process, how that improves our overall economy, how it improves our GDP and how it improves our attractiveness to companies such as Meta, who we just landed just a couple of months ago with an $800 million investment. And those are things that when we look at being a government town and being a military town, having Maxwell Gunter Air Force Base present, we have to think about how do we recruit and retain talent. And we lose a lot of our best and brightest to metro areas surrounding our city. And so we have to make sure that from a quality of place standpoint, we're working with our county commission, we're working with our school board, we're working with our area universities and colleges, as well as our state government to make sure we're creating a quality of place that really attracts not only those that we want to come from outside, but also those that are native to Montgomery and native to Central Alabama to stay at home. And as we've talked about before, when you look at growth in the heartland, it's really important to have those public-private partnerships, those collaborations that really highlight the positive things that you're doing in your community, but also improve some of the things that you can do a little bit better.
Thank you, Mayor Reed. You both have talked about some real successes in both of your communities that you certainly are proud of. Where do you see a couple of challenges taking place, and what are you hoping to be able to do about that in the future? So, Mayor?
So I think it really goes back to what we are all here to do. We're here to work for our communities, and I really do believe that mayors do get the job done. So we've got to get back to some basics, though. When rising salaries and attrition being one of the issues in terms of just a staff point of view, we need to get back to some basics. So I really believe that community is asking us to focus on the things that make the most sense in each community. That is safety, that is infrastructure, that is economic growth. And last but not least, it's homelessness. I think the panel a couple of sessions ago mentioned about this being a community-wide problem, not just in our major cities, but also in our smaller cities. And so I believe that what we need to do is work on the challenges, focus our efforts on those priorities, make sure that those are really handled well, and then we can move forward from those. I do believe people are looking to get back to some basics of what local government should really be focusing on. And when you do that, others will start saying, check out that city. That's the city that we need to start listening and seeing what they're doing. What is the secret? The secret really comes down to community. I really believe in empowering people with information. As a 12-year reporter and anchor for local news, I can tell you that when you share information with people and they are empowered with information, they can make the best decisions for themselves and their families. Local government doesn't have all the solutions, and unfortunately, we have many challenges. So again, I believe it's getting back to some basics.
Wonderful, thank you. Mayor Reed.
I think for our city, public safety is always top of mind. How do we improve the relationship between our police department and our community? How do we deal in a state that passes reckless gun laws with having the responsibility at a local level to get guns off the street and to make sure more and more people understand conflict resolution and how to de-escalate circumstances that too often turn violent. And so we're always thinking about, how can our community be healthier from public safety standpoint, but that makes us wealthier. It makes us a better place to live and a better place for people to want to work as well. But the other thing is, how do we invest in public education, not just K through 12, but how do we really model the best educational practices that are preparing our students as well as those adults for the economic workplace of today, or the job workplace of today? How do we do that so that they are ready for advanced manufacturing opportunities that we have coming in, the knowledge-based economy? When we think about AI and ChatGPT, how is that going to impact our workplace? And so we want to make sure that our workforce is up to speed, and we have to make sure that as we're recruiting companies, we actually can talk with confidence about where our residents are and where those that are in surrounding communities can help them make a profit. So that's another major issue. And I think the last thing for us, and we never we want to forget about just the basics of job growth and the dignity of work. Making sure that whether you're working a small business, as I did several years ago running my own restaurant, or if you're working at a state job or on our military base, we want to make sure that we've got great jobs that allow people to really achieve the American dream. And that's very, very important for us, because if we're not doing that, if our wages aren't keeping up, then they don't see the success of the things that we as mayors and all of us collectively want to do, and we're highlighting those job numbers. We're talking about this big project, or we're even talking about an expansion of an existing company. It has to translate to our residents, and having those conversations with business owners as well as corporate CEOs is important that they understand that's a priority for us.
Wonderful, thank you. You both have hinted at this, but collaboration is really key in both of your cities, and probably for cities all around the country. What are a couple of examples you're seeing where you're seeing folks come together, collaborate in a very dynamic way? And Mayor Reed, if you don't mind starting off on this one.
Well, listen, very easy for me. I'll start with the U.S. Conference of Mayors P3 Committee that was just started and has already helped us. And public-private partnerships, we know, have been very important to cities over the years. And I'm not sure if our previous civic leaders really valued that as much as I think that we do. And so we put an emphasis on casting a wide net and letting those entities know that we want to work with you, whether that's in the philanthropic space, whether that's in homelessness, whether that's in addressing our veterans issues, wherever it may be, we want to make sure that we're a willing partner. We know we don't have all the answers, and we know that we need subject matter experts to help us. And one specific space has involved basically the last campsite of the Selma to Montgomery Voting Rights March, where Dr. King and so many others camped before going on to Montgomery, our state capital there, to give his voting rights speech in 1965. Well, that hospital was disinvested because they hosted those civil rights leaders and those civil rights activists. So now we have the conservation fund that's pouring millions of dollars into that hospital to not only restore the hospital itself, which will be transformed into senior living and assisted living facility, but also the surrounding area and that surrounding corridor. So that's a great example for us that I think really has come out of working with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and it's come out of our overall philosophy of we can do more together, and if we are really working towards things that positively impact people, other great things will come our way.
Fantastic, thank you. Mayor Wu.
Well, I really believe that any time that you have collaboration, there is a sense of celebration that we need to really focus on. Just last month, we had the groundbreaking of a $300 million biomedical center, which is a collaboration between two major universities right here in the state of Kansas, so University of Kansas and Wichita State University. But it required not just the will of education, but it's a three-legged stool, so it actually requires education, government, and the private sector. And I think that that is the key to a lot of that collaborative effort. You've got to bring these three different industries or these three segments together. And when they do come together, we need to celebrate it. Because the celebration, the reason why there's collaboration is because there's a shared vision. I think in clearly stating what that shared vision is, we can actually have more collaboration. So just last night, we had our community meeting regarding a homelessness navigation center with wraparound services. We have wonderful nonprofits throughout the city, but everyone's fragmented, wanting to get their own credit. The problem is we're not having a shared vision of what is it that we really want to solve. So now you have the political will of not just the city, but also the county, and now you also have the providers as well as faith-based. So in that situation, you're bringing collaborative efforts of multiple different sectors together. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity for a multi-agency navigation center.
Fantastic, thank you. Excellent examples too of that active local collaboration. Now just looking ahead, if you look out 3 years, what are a couple of priorities that you really want to be attuned to? And Mayor Wu, if you don't mind leading off.
I really believe it's focusing more on that three-legged stool. We're not working against each other, but rather working with each other together. That is government, education, and the private sector. Job creators need to be at the table to help us with these big challenges in community. I believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm again gonna focus our community on the priorities that I campaigned on, and it's really back to what local government should be focusing on. Ensuring public safety, strengthening the economy, restoring trust in City Hall through effective and good communication, really. And last but not least, building a united community so that you don't see yourself as red or blue, but rather you're a Wichitan, and that's my efforts for the next 4 years.
Fantastic. Mayor Reed.
I think for us, we want to continue to invest in small and mid-sized businesses. We want to make sure that, again, although the big names and the big job announcements get the headlines, that we understand where our economy rests. And when you run your own restaurant and you do everything from prep the kitchen to the food to clean up to be a delivery driver and everything else you have to do for those catering orders, you understand what that small business owner is going through in any space that they may exist. So we want to continue to provide more support, to continue to provide that technical assistance that they so often need. And unfortunately, I think in a government town, we don't really focus on that as much because we get tied up in state politics and what's happening so often there. But at City Hall, we have to make these things work. The other thing is we want to make sure that there's equitable investment in our city. There are parts of our city that, in large part due to decades ago decisions, still have felt cut off from the prosperity and the growth of our community. So we have to be intentional about bringing those neighborhoods and those residents, into focus and making sure that they see that they are heard and they know that we are focusing and prioritizing some of the things that they have been saying for many, many years. And finally, from my standpoint, over the next 3 to 5 years, we want to make sure that our economy is inclusive and it is something that we can be very proud of who's been brought to the table, who feels like they are part, again, of that growth and of that prosperity. And we can point to those examples of people being involved, engaged, and really being excited about what the future may hold for our city.
Excellent. Well, please join me in thanking both mayors. I really appreciate you sharing it. It's a pleasure to be with both of you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Okay, how's everyone doing? Okay, I am so excited because we have a real treat for you. And I did not know that this gentleman was actually on the program, so I was like fangirling. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. He's amazing. He is one of the nation's top messaging experts and has been extremely helpful to us as we have worked to message and push forward our bipartisan work. He has done excellent research over the years working to understand how people think, vote, and make decisions. I also learned he worked for Mayor Giuliani at the time, Ross Perot. You've probably seen him on CNN, MSNBC. He is someone that his research is absolutely outstanding. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. We are so excited to have in the house today Frank Luntz, Dr. Frank Luntz. Give it up.
How y'all doing? Yes, I can see you're waving your hand. I'm sorry you didn't get dessert. Clearly, I've had too much. Can I get my other guests to go up on stage? Because I got some bad news for you. And it's going to be very unpleasant. I'm telling you this in advance. You're not going to like what you see. We're angrier than we were the last time I saw you. We're more divided than we were the last time I saw you. We don't listen to each other anymore. And I'm going to show you some language. But I got good news for you. I get the chance, when this is done, I'm going to show you about 20, 30 minutes. You're going to be able to ask whatever questions you want. I want to give you the language of America, what they want to hear from you, what they need to hear from you. But before I do, I want to introduce 4 very special guests, the class of 2024, the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. Gentlemen, can you please stand up and give us just a brief introduction? Gentlemen and ladies.
Good afternoon. My name is Thomas Ward. I'm a recent graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. And at West Point, go ahead, yeah. I'll clap for West Point too. At West Point, I had the honor and the privilege of serving as the president of the senior class, the class of 2024. I got to be a leader on our premier military skills team, where we got to compete against allies in military skills competitions. And I also had the privilege of harnessing my interests and my passions in public policy, in problem solving, and in leadership. And before I proceed and pass the mic off, I must say, although we are West Point graduates and we're officers in the United States Army, nothing we say today is necessarily a view of the Department of Defense or of the United States Army. Thank you.
It doesn't matter, Thomas, you're still fired.
Hello, everyone. I'm William Jew. I had the privilege of serving as my battalion's honor board president, meaning I presided over all the honor boards that happened within our battalion of 370 cadets, upholding the honor code that I'm sure you guys know West Point for. I also had the privilege of serving as the president of the West Point German Club, the Orthodox Christian Fellowship, and during my freshman year, I had the honor of participating in Operation Allied Airlift, where we successfully evacuated hundreds of U.S. citizens and Afghans during our withdrawal and settled them about 2 minutes walk from my house. Fun fact, both of my siblings are at West Point right now as cadets, so it's going to be really in the family, all 3 of us. And I'd like to introduce Megan.
And actually, hold on one second, because I want you all to know that his parents were born in Korea. And it makes me emotional, because it is the American dream that his parents are born in Korea and all 3 siblings are serving America at West Point, and they're all honor students.
Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Kumwa. At West Point, I had the honor of serving as battalion commander. And I also competed on the Army Women's boxing team, where I earned 3 academic All-American titles and was named as the West Point Hal Moore Female Award winner. So thank you for having me, and thanks for being here.
And I got one more thing to say to you. I challenged her as a boxer, and her response to me was, "I'm gonna knock you out."
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Israel Dixon from Conyers, Georgia. And at West Point, I had the privilege of being a battalion command sergeant major in charge of the development and personal development of 350 cadets. While at West Point, I also had the privilege to travel to schools across the nation, underdeveloped communities across the nation, to teach kids, middle and high schoolers, about the importance of STEM and leadership. So that's something I really pride myself in, and something I'm really, really passionate about, is giving back to the communities across the country and eventually across the world. Thank you.
And they're all going to talk to you. We're going to go through the bad stuff now, so get your pen and paper and phones ready, and then each one of them is going to deliver a message to you, and it's really wonderful. So guys, hold on for 1 second. I just realized that I have to look like this, otherwise you're going to be looking at my ass when I walk. and it's not a wide angle lens, so there's a lot to see. So first, let's pull the PowerPoint up. I want to skip. Actually, no, I do want you to see this. I'll let you read it. This is the most important thing I will do this month. Who are the mayors in this room? If you're a mayor, please raise your hands. You're it. You're it. The public has come to distrust Congress completely. They have issues with either candidate for president. They wonder whether their governors are doing the jobs that we expect from them. You are the last remaining institution of credibility in this country. Actually, that is not meant to be an applause line. That's meant to be a, oh shit, we're in trouble line. And I promised I wouldn't swear, so I take it back. I did not just say, oh shit. I said, oh damn. Here's your language for you. The public wants things to work, and they don't want exceptions or excuses. They also want you to personalize, humanize, and individualize everything that you say. You're not here to teach ideology. You're here for safe streets and to plow the roads and to make sure that people have a decent quality of life. And remember that they pay for you. They make all this stuff happen. And that last line is probably the most important of all, a track record of meaningful, measurable results. That is the #1 phrase they're looking for you, and I'm going to show you a whole set of this momentarily. Now, there's been a change since I last saw you. I think I was here about 18 months ago. And I told you at the time that you needed to start to talk about the challenges so the public understands that you understand the issues. Stop. You don't have to do it anymore. Over the last 18 months, we've been more informed, we've been more engaged. The public isn't looking for you to tell them what's wrong. They're looking for you to fix it. So I'm asking for a message change, not about what's wrong, but how you're going to make it right. There are several phrases in this that are really important. New ideas, because they think the old ideas have failed them. Better solutions, because they think the solutions aren't working. And good people, which matters more than anything else. Why are we a great country? Not because we got a great military, not because we have a strong economy. We're a great country because we have great people. Acknowledge it. I know this is how you feel. I've met with a bunch of mayors this morning. By the way, for all the mayors that have agreed to meet with my West Point cadets, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. They're going to be here all afternoon and evening. I know you've got a barbecue coming up. Go visit them. Go hear their stories. Because the principles that they learned at West Point are principles that you're trying to teach your communities every single day. Also up here, global innovation is what America's so good at. Ingenuity is about the personal impact of innovation and real results. This phrase works. And that last phrase, that last sentence, will once again be the United States of America. That is exactly what the public is looking for. Some way to bring us together again. Do you know what I love about this group? I don't know who's a Democrat here. I don't know who's a Republican here, and it just doesn't matter. Now that is an applause line. And now, and by the way, that makes me feel like Jeb Bush, like begging for applause from people. This is the most upsetting finding in this entire survey. The idea that only two-thirds of America are invested in America's future and America's success. This is not a good number, but it's the ones that's below. 31% say that America is invested in them. This is up to you. If your citizens, the people you represent, don't feel like you're invested in them, you are not succeeding. and I showed this to members of Congress and they thought it was kind of funny. I think it's pathetic. The idea that 2/3 of Americans think that their country doesn't care about them. And that's why we're so angry. And that's 83%, the highest number ever measured for this question, say we're more divided than at any time in their lifetime. And those people who are 65 and older, do you know what they remember? Martin Luther King's assassination, Bobby Kennedy getting killed, Kent State, oil embargoes, the burning of New York and Chicago and Los Angeles. They remember riots, and 92% of Americans think it's worse today than it's ever been. This is the bad news. And I got a few more like this, and then I'm going to get to the language that gets you around. And the other thing that really bothers me, the fact that 2/3 of Americans under age 30 know someone who's been damaged by social media, and yet you do nothing about it. So I'm going to give you something that's going to be useful for everyone. Who here has got kids or grandchildren between the ages of 10 and 18? Raise your hands. I promise you, you're going to want this. I'm going to give you the things that matter most to them so that they're happy, healthy, drug-free, and alcohol-free. Number one, how often do you have dinner with them? And I know that it's difficult as a mayor because you have responsibilities. But the fact is, your responsibility to your family comes first. 5 nights a week is the single greatest indicator that the kids are going to be okay. 2 nights a week or less is the single greatest indication that your children are in trouble. Second, do they attend religious services? Doesn't matter what it is. If they believe in God, if they believe that there's a supreme being that they can't see, they behave better. They treat each other with respect. They treat themselves with dignity. Church or synagogue every week. Third, how often do you check their homework? You need to do it 4 nights a week or more because that tells them that their intellectual development is as important as their physical development. Fourth, and I'm checking to see if I got it here, you need to take them away. Take them out of their home environment for a week every year, and you leave this off. I see you guys. You're on the phone. I see you talking to your kids. It's okay if you're away. But you're having dinner, and you pick up the phone, and they have no idea. They know you don't know who's calling you. But you pick up the phone, and that's an acid, and it destroys relationships. You really do need to keep it in your pocket. Fifth, do you know where they are on Friday and Saturday nights? And do they tell you the truth where they are? Do you know where their friends are? And do they tell you the truth? Because if they'll lie to you about that, they'll lie to you about anything. And finally, sixth, do they participate in a team sport? Because then they have a responsibility to each other. If you can count 5 out of 6, your kids are going to be in great shape. If you only count 2, and I know this is a political gathering, and I know how difficult this is, but you count 2 out of 6 or less, and you're going to have a problem. In the end, you can't fix your community if you can't fix your family. And really, nothing matters more than that. Next, what are the attributes that the public wants more than anything else? Number one, and it's not even close, is the truth. And here's the problem. Where do you go to get the truth? Show of hands. How many of you get some of your news from Fox? Raise your hands. Right in front of me. By the way, you guys are all going to be thrown out of here momentarily. Who gets your news from CNN? Raise your hands. A lot more of you. Who gets your news from MSNBC? MSNBC is the only news network with more letters in its name than viewers. So I told that joke on live television. They fired me 11 minutes later. My father was so proud of me, he bought me a car. Where do we go? The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, BBC, because it's from outside. We want the truth, and we don't know how to get the truth. In terms of issues, I know you guys care about this. The number one issue, I know it says inflation. Don't use that word. No human being talks about inflation. They talk about affordability. They talk about costs. They talk about prices. I haven't seen a normal individual walk into a supermarket, a Whole Foods, going through the meat section saying, wow, look at that inflation. I followed people around in 2022, this true story. And I went to several different cities, and I would follow shoppers around to see the impact of inflation, particularly around Thanksgiving. What I did not realize is that it's kind of creepy for a guy with a beard who looks like I do to be following women around as they're shopping for food. And so a whole bunch of them called the store manager, and I had to get myself out of a lot of trouble. They don't talk about inflation. It's costs. Food, fuel, housing, and healthcare. F squared, H squared. It's a simple methodology, and it works. Second is immigration. I don't care where you stand on it. The public believes the system is broken. They believe there's no control at the border. They believe it's leading to violence and other pathologies that they don't appreciate. And immigration is going to pass inflation as the #1 issue in America within the next month or so. And you don't have to be a border state. It really is upsetting everyone. On the Democratic side, those are two issues that help the Republicans. On the Democratic side, abortion. The single most likely reason for young women to get out and vote is the right to choose, is the right to have control over their bodies. 18 to 29-year-old women, they put that first over everything else. And the second issue on the Democratic side is health care. So you got one issue for young women and the other issue for older people. And notice that everything that I say is going to be a Republican and a Democrat, because I really do believe that we have to, you of all people have to keep that balance. I'll give you an example. I was lucky enough to be at the very last Trump event before he left the White House, December 23rd, 2020. It was the White House Christmas party. And after about 2 hours, because Trump is very temperamental, I finally got the guts to ask him, what does the J in Donald J. Trump stand for? You know what he told me? Genius. Now, that is a joke. I did tell him that joke, and it took him about 10 seconds to say to me, but I am a genius, and that just made the point. And on the Democratic side, come on, you look, Joe Biden is so old it takes him an hour and a half to watch 60 Minutes. His favorite painting is The Last Supper. If you look carefully, he's in it. The only time he doesn't have to pee is when he's actually peeing. So it's hard to believe that these are two guys running the country, and this is why it's so important that you guys are successful. Okay, couple things about words. 50%, almost 50%, are now afraid of saying what they truly believe because they're afraid they'll get canceled. I know that's some people in this room right here. We're the nation of freedom of speech. What the heck has gone wrong with us? Another example, 1/3 of people have stopped talking to somebody because they disagree with them over politics. This is why it's so important for you guys to have these conversations and to be able to debate and communicate. And what I'm going to do is show you guys right now. When you think of government, 82% think the federal, 12% think state, only 6% think local. That is a good thing. You want nothing to do with government. By the way, I could say the F word 5 times. It's still more popular than the word government. That is how bad things have gotten. And in fact, we asked the question, which you have the most faith in? Local is more than federal or state combined. That's why I say to you why this is so important for you all. And I want you to see the level of distrust is growing and growing and growing over time. So I want to get to the words because I know that that's the stuff that you guys really care about. We're at a crossroads. Our divisions have created too much distance between friends, neighbors, coworkers, even family. We can't go on like this. I'm urging you to begin your town halls with statements like this. I'm urging you to begin your letters, your engagements with this kind of language because it's embracing to everyone. No one's offended by this. Everyone agrees that we're too angry, that we hold people's opinions against them. But you have to communicate it or otherwise they don't see it. So what do they want most? Respect. And in fact, I would urge you to consider creating an entire series of respectful conversations with your constituents. The word respect means you appreciate their point of view, and it means that they will appreciate yours. It's a two-way street, and in fact, respect is good. Mutual respect is even better. Another example, what they want from you, forget these mission statements. Forget agendas. Don't do it. They want a detailed plan of action. Detailed, so you got the specifics. A plan, so you've actually written it down. And action, because that's what they want. And there's nothing else that comes close. Another example, and this is what scares me. What's the single biggest negative right now? Dehumanization. If people feel like they've been dehumanized, they cut you off, they don't listen anymore, and you don't communicate to them. And we have to avoid that in everything that we do. This is the one you want to take a picture of. I've got two different examples of 21 words, and I'll just do a few of these. By the way, let me stop for a second. Any questions? Because I've been talking for too long. Anyone got a question? I've never gone through this much time with mayors and no one's yelling at me. Okay, I'll continue. Best words for America in 2024. I'm going to do 5 of these. It's fact-based, not evidence-based. Facts, you don't argue over. Evidence, there's evidence for the prosecution, there's evidence for the defense. Who here's a lawyer? If you're a lawyer, raise your hands. Get the hell out. I think it's your fault that things have gone to hell. A fact is a fact. You don't argue over a fact, so you use fact-based. Second, we have to do better. It is uniquely American that we're always looking for intergenerational improvement. And I'm going to show you why people feel so negative towards where we are right now. Raise your hands if your quality of life overall is better than your parents when they were your age. Raise your hands if you're, and keep them up. And look around the room. It's almost everybody. Hands down. Now raise your hands if you truly believe your children's quality of life is going to be better than yours. Look at how few hands go up. The difference is striking. The difference is really, really scary. Third, healthy economy. The only people who talk about economic growth are economists. Nobody knows what economic growth means. A healthy economy, healthy schools, healthy workplace environment, healthy families. Health is what the public is looking for, and a healthy economy is the #1 goal. And finally, I'll do reasonable, sensible, and responsible. They're not looking for liberals or progressives. They're not looking for conservatives or right-wingers. They want someone who has a reasonable, sensible, responsible plan. It's not ideological anymore. And in fact, the ideology is what's tearing us apart. You give them reasonable, sensible, responsible, I'll give you a re-election. One other set of language here, in terms of local government. Delivering a better quality of life. I hear people talk about standard of living. The problem, and by the way, guys, get ready because I'm giving you your 5-minute warning. Standard of living is about money. Quality of life is about schools, about hospitals, about roads. It's about something that is far more important. No excuses, no exceptions. They want to know that you're serious about what you do. They want to know that you're committed and that this is not something political, that this is something real. A meaningful, measurable track record of success is the highest priority of the average voter. And people are struggling. 1 out of 4 Americans have trouble paying their bills at least once a month. 1 out of 4 Americans have trouble paying their bills at least twice a year. Half of America is okay. And that means half of America isn't. They want to know that you know that and that you understand that. So words to use and words to lose. Common ground is better than consensus. Listening to others and hearing them is better than empathy. Another example, listening with an open mind is better than disagreeing better, and a respectful, honest, and healthy discussion is better than empathy. I'm going to turn it over to the West Point cadets. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, guys, you're up. Who's going first? You're going to appreciate this because this is going to show you that no matter what you see on college campuses all across the country, these cadets at West Point, and now second lieutenants, are the very best of America. Will, go ahead.
Mayors of America, I look out today and see proof that public service is alive and well in these United States. I look out and see mayors of all backgrounds representing communities and cities, large and small. I look out and I see America. I see the same at West Point. At West Point, you are placed into a company of 130 other cadets from all 50 states in our union, of various ranks and responsibilities. They are of all races, religions, and backgrounds, all bound together in common cause to a life of service to our nation. At West Point, you live and train and sacrifice together in Spartan conditions through mud and fire. But more than that, you also wake up together and are sleep deprived together. You eat together 3 meals a day in the same dining hall, go to sleep together in the same barracks, and worship together in the same chapels. As a cadet, your duties will include such mundane tasks as doing laundry for all 130 of your company mates, cleaning their toilets and showers, taking out the trash, and setting the table. They include tutoring and mentoring your younger cadets, alongside training them how to fight. It doesn't matter what they look like, it doesn't matter where they come from. You grow to depend on each other, to have each other's backs, and most importantly, to love each other as your family. You realize that you share a common destiny with these, your brothers and sisters, as you commit to a profession in service of our country. This means that while West Point cadets are committed to the most extraordinary demands of patriotism, we also live the quiet virtue of patriotism in all circumstances of ordinary life through daily performance of our civic duties to each other. West Point teaches us to fight on to victory, to conquer our fears and finish as a team through rigorous military training, competition in sports, and through academic excellence. No substitute for victory is engraved in our bones, but so is honor and truth and justice. As mayors, you love citizens like this, citizens who are energetic and passionate about civic duty, but also hardworking, disciplined, and willing to sacrifice in the most unassuming of ways. Our choices are never simply questions about what to do, but also what sorts of people we wish to be. I ask you to choose West Point. I ask that this not be a one-time occasion, but that West Point participates with you as friends in your communities for years to come. Just as you serve your country, we at West Point wish to serve you. At West Point, service is not just a superficial soundbite or a slogan. We seek to embody the values we learn at West Point and bring them to your cities and your communities to serve alongside and learn from the patriots that I know reside there. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Hello, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and mayors of America. I want everyone to picture this. A pool's icy water is pulling you down. Suddenly, your military gear feels like an anchor. The alarms are blaring, lights are flashing, you can't even breathe. This is survival swim at West Point. I was in the lowest swim class, and I was staring down the very real fear that I might not make it through the critical gate. In that moment, battling the water's force, doubt crept in. Standing here today, I'm a proud graduate of the United States Military Academy and graduate of the survival swim class, so I'm happy to say that I made it. But fast forward later in my cadet career, I was assigned a junior cadet, a plebe, who wore the same look of dread I once did when facing survival swim. I instantly knew that I need to go back to the pool because despite my fear, because my plebe success had become more important than my own discomfort. This transformation from struggling to survive to selflessly supporting another captures the very essence of West Point's impact. The weight of our responsibilities teaches us that true leadership is not measured by our own accolades, but by the welfare and well-being of those that we lead. As mayors and leaders of America, you shouldered the immense challenge of guiding diverse communities through complex and often uncertain times. And in these moments, the welfare and the good being of those you lead is critical. So I want to share 3 principles that I learned from West Point and hopefully resonate with you as you continue to come and lead our country to a better place. The first is mentorship and development. Just as we are tasked with developing junior cadets, consider fostering relationships and mentorship within your own teams. Empower your staff and community members by providing opportunities for growth and learning, and cultivate a culture where experienced leaders actively mentor the next generation. The second is service before self. Leadership and governance, like in the military, demands a commitment to serving others before oneself. This means making decisions that benefit the community as a whole, even when they're difficult or even unpopular. Your legacy as a leader will be defined by the well-being and progress of those that you serve. And the final principle I want to share is character integrity. Upholding ethical standards and demonstrating moral courage is essential. Your constituents and I look to you as role models. Leading with transparency, honesty, and fairness will build trust and inspire others to follow suit. West Point has taught me that the essence of leadership lies in the ability to inspire, support, and elevate others. As you navigate the complexity of your roles, your greatest achievement will be reflected in the successes of the well-beings of your community. Thank you for your dedication to public service and for allowing me to share these reflections with you today. Together, let us lead with character and commitment to find the greater good. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, guests, and esteemed mayors. It is an honor to be here today. 3 weeks ago, I graduated from the United States Military Academy, and I stand before you today, deeply aware of the challenges that our nation faces. As Dr. Luntz mentioned, our country is marked by divisions, but my experiences at West Point have shown me that unity and effective leadership can bridge even the deepest divides. One of the most valuable lessons that I took from West Point is the power of shared values and common goals. Despite our varied backgrounds, we were all driven by a commitment to protect and to serve our country. This common purpose helped us to overcome obstacles in our differences and to work together to find common ground. As mayors, you have an obligation to inspire your communities by highlighting shared values and common aspirations. I guarantee that each and every one of you in this room today have more in common than you think. But the only way to truly know is to listen. And it starts with conversation and communication. Most importantly, it starts with you. Your discourse and willingness to keep open minds will spread to your cities and your communities, making for a more empathetic, more encouraged, and more emotionally intelligent America. And if nothing else, your efforts might just result in one less angry email in your inbox. Never know. Let us strive to foster a sense of belonging and collective action that transcends individual differences and strives for positive change. In today's polarized climate, these skills are more crucial than ever. As officers and as mayors of these great United States, we must listen actively, communicate effectively, and remain steadfast in our commitment to uniting our communities. The values that West Point has instilled in us should be no secret. You all were kind enough today to invite us, and we want to return that favor so that we may create a better tomorrow, not only for our generation, but for generations to come. Going forward, let us carry these lessons forward and work together to build a more united, more resilient nation and a more perfect union. Thank you.
Good afternoon again. My name is Thomas Ward, as I mentioned earlier. And first off, let me be clear. The backbone of America, it's not found in the halls of Congress, it's not found in the Oval Office, and it's not found in the state capitals. It's found right in City Hall, where you all reside. So from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice, and thank you for all that each of you are doing and are striving to do for your communities, for our country, so that we can live in a more prosperous place. Thank you. As I've reflected on the history that I've learned at West Point, I've come to believe that every single generation is tasked with a mission. There's a purpose for the given age, for the given era. And now, in 2024, I firmly believe that our mission, right now, is to be leaders of character, capable of healing a nation and being beacons of hope for the future of our country. But in order to do this, I've realized that I must ask myself 3 important questions very candidly, and I encourage you to do the same. Number 1, are we being selfless and sacrificial in our service? Or are we allowing the strong currents of self-interest to pull us away from the shores of servitude? Secondly, are we remaining faithful to our moral values? Or are we falling victim to choosing the easier wrong rather than committing to the harder right? And third, are we delivering on our duty? Or are we allowing complacency with the status quo to stall progress in our communities? If we are to be the catalyst our country needs, the exemplars our country wants, and the leaders our country deserves, then we must answer the call for our communities and for our country to be leaders of character. West Point has taught each of us what it means to be a leader of character, and we believe the values of the institution can and must be shared to every citizen, in every community, in every corner of our country. So following this presentation, I invite each of you to continue the conversation with us. We can continue that this afternoon, this evening, or even beyond, so that we can work together to bring the values that we hold dear to our hearts to your communities and throughout the country where they belong. Thank you.
I appreciate that reaction. Thomas, you've got one more responsibility. This is a poem that I wanted to try to read, but I can't because I get too emotional. And the fact that I get to teach these young women and men is such a privilege. But there was a poem that was read. It wasn't a poem, it was a statement. It's 2 minutes at Normandy 2 weeks ago. Do you have that? It's called The Watch. If you could communicate that, because it's you all and it's them, please.
So this is a poem that was read by a U.S. Navy officer at the 80th anniversary ceremony of D-Day on June 6th this year. Quote, 80 years ago, these sailors stood the watch. While some of us were in our bunks at night, these soldiers stood the watch. While some of us were in school learning our trade, Marines, airmen, and coasties stood the watch. Yes, even before some of us were born into this world, the men behind me and their brothers and sisters who lay before me stood the watch. In those years when the storm clouds of war were seen brewing on the horizon of history, they stood the watch. Many times they casted their eye ashore and saw families standing there needing guidance and help, needing that hand to hold in those hard times, but they still stood the watch. They stood the watch 80 years ago. They stood the watch so that we, our families, and our fellow countrymen and countrywomen can sleep soundly in safety each and every night, knowing that these veterans stood the watch. Today, we are here to say, World War II veterans, the watch stands relieved. Relieved by those you have trained, guided, and led. Our American World War II veterans, you stand relieved. We have the watch. So in the midst of everything that's going on in the country, the uncertainty that lays ahead of each of us, we say that to each of you, to the leaders of our community and our country. Similarly, we're ready to stand the watch. Thank you.
Please thank our West Point cadets. See you all next year, I hope.
Thank you for attending this afternoon's session. We stand adjourned.